The woman had spent her entire life surrounded by people who wanted something from her, yet on the day she desperately needed someone to tell her the truth, she mistook a struggling single father for a gardener. What she did not know was that the quiet man kneeling among the roses was the owner of the estate she had just inherited. He could have corrected her immediately. He could have revealed his identity and watched her face change. Instead, he simply smiled, lowered his eyes, and continued planting flowers. He had learned long ago that the quickest way to discover someone's heart was to let them believe you had nothing to offer. Before we continue, if you believe kindness, second chances, and genuine love matter more than wealth or appearances, please like this video, share it with someone special, leave a comment, and subscribe to Whispered Hearts. Your support helps us share stories that remind us there is still goodness in the world. His name was Everett Hale, a 39-year-old single father who had recently inherited a beautiful countryside estate from his late grandfather. The property was worth millions, but Everett had never cared much about displaying his wealth. After losing his wife years earlier, he had focused almost entirely on raising his 10-year-old daughter, Wren. The little girl was the center of his world, and Everett had learned to live simply despite his financial security. He wore old work shirts, repaired things instead of replacing them, and spent most mornings in the garden because his grandfather had taught him that the best things in life required patience. One warm afternoon, Everett was kneeling beside a rose bed when a silver car stopped near the garden path. A woman stepped out carrying a folder filled with documents. Her name was Juliette, a talented architect who had been hired to inspect the estate before its renovation. She had been told the property belonged to an extremely wealthy family, but nobody had shown her a photograph of the new owner. When she saw Everett covered in soil, wearing gardening gloves and old boots, she naturally assumed he was the gardener. She approached him and asked if the owner was available. Everett looked up, noticed the uncertainty in her eyes, and simply told her that the owner would be around later. Juliette apologized for bothering him and began explaining why she was there. She needed access to the greenhouse, the old library, and the western wing of the estate. Everett listened patiently and offered to show her around. As they walked through the gardens, Juliette began talking more freely than she probably would have if she had known who he was. She admitted that she was exhausted, struggling to prove herself in a profession dominated by powerful people who often dismissed her ideas. She also revealed that her younger brother was seriously ill and that she had taken on enormous financial responsibilities to help her family. Everett listened without judgment. What touched him most was that Juliette never once treated him badly. She thanked him for carrying a heavy box, apologized when she stepped into freshly planted soil, and even stopped to admire a small wooden birdhouse hanging from a tree. When she noticed Wren sitting beneath the tree reading a book, she smiled and asked whether she was Everett's daughter. He nodded. Juliette knelt beside Wren and asked what she was reading. The little girl proudly showed her a story about a girl who wanted to become an astronomer. Juliette told her that she should never let anyone convince her that her dreams were too big. Everett quietly watched them, realizing that beneath Juliette's polished appearance was a deeply compassionate woman. Over the next several days, Juliette returned to the estate. She continued believing Everett was the gardener, and Everett never corrected her. He found himself enjoying their conversations. For the first time since his wife's death, he felt comfortable around someone who did not know his bank balance, family name, or social position. Then everything changed. Juliette discovered that her brother's medical bills had become overwhelming. She was preparing to abandon the estate project because she needed to take a second job. Everett wanted to help, but he feared that revealing his wealth would make her believe their friendship had been built on deception. Instead, he quietly arranged for the estate's foundation to provide financial assistance to families facing medical hardship. Juliette was stunned when she received the approval. She had no idea that Everett was behind it. A week later, the estate hosted a formal meeting with investors and architects. Juliette arrived early and walked into the grand hall, expecting to meet the mysterious owner. She froze when the doors opened and Everett entered wearing an elegant suit. Her face went completely pale. Suddenly, every conversation they had shared made sense. The gardener she had spoken to so casually was actually the owner of the estate. Juliette felt humiliated. She thought he had deliberately deceived her and that every conversation had been some kind of test. But Everett calmly explained that he had never lied about being the gardener. He simply had not told her that he was also the owner. He wanted to know whether people could see him as a human being before seeing his wealth. Juliette became emotional and admitted that she was angry, but not because he was wealthy. She was hurt because she had begun trusting him. Everett told her that he had trusted her too. Then Ren walked into the room carrying the same astronomy book Juliette had given her. She ran toward Juliette and hugged her without hesitation. That simple embrace broke the tension. Months later, Juliette completed the estate renovation, preserving the garden exactly as Everett's grandfather had designed it. But the biggest change was not the restored mansion or beautiful rose beds. It was the new community garden Everett created on the property, where children from struggling families could learn, plant flowers, and dream without worrying about money. Juliette became a volunteer there. Ren spent every afternoon helping her father and Juliette care for the garden. Slowly, what began as a misunderstanding became a friendship, then something deeper. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Whispered Hearts. Your engagement helps these stories reach more people who need a reminder that true character cannot be measured by clothing, money, or social status. And before the ending, leave a special comment saying kindness sees the heart if you believe we should treat everyone with dignity, no matter who they appear to be. Everett never regretted allowing Juliette to mistake him for a gardener. Because among the roses, beneath the warm afternoon sun, he discovered something money could never buy, someone who valued him before knowing what he owned. And perhaps that was destiny's quietest lesson. That sometimes the best relationships begin when nobody knows your title, your wealth, or your name, and someone chooses to appreciate you simply for the person you are.